Hi, I knew what the premise of the substance was going to be. A washed up star doing something drastic to retain her youth and beauty. I knew the story's message was going to highlight the sadly large importance women place on themselves to stay pretty and young through various invasive and unnecessary procedures. What I didn't know is that the main character was going to birth a whole new younger version of herself through her back, and it was going to change the way I thought about myself forever. Here's the thing, the substance is a very simple story, and the message is extremely obvious. I like that. Instead of complicated dialogue, unnecessary characters, confusing plot twists, and an ambiguous ending nobody can agree upon, the creators focused entirely on hammering in the message of this film. Why is this so great? Well, because this particular message is not a new one. For decades and through every medium available, the message of love yourself has been done and dusted. Music, characters in TV shows, movies have tried to drill in this idea of loving the real, natural you. So much so that we've become desensitized to the idea. You hear you've got to love yourself. We hear everywhere all the time that you must speak nice to yourself and accept who you are. It's great to be unique, there's only one you. But that doesn't stop the majority of us still suffering from deeply rooted insecurities and self-hate. It doesn't stop us saying horrible words to ourselves in the mirror, getting cosmetic procedures, and nipping and tucking all the parts of our bodies we've been told to hate. And the instruction to love yourself doesn't twinge the heartstrings like it used to. It's lost its meaning. As the substance started, I sat down to watch yet another attempt at drumming that message into my brain, and I was prepared to exit the experience exactly how I came in. But nothing could have prepared me for how I felt when the credits of that movie ate the screen. Nothing could have prepared me for the feeling of attraction I felt when I looked in the mirror straight after. I'm not kidding. I realised that I will always be me, so I might as well decide to like it. So, what made this movie so different? What made this movie deliver its message so well, a message that is oversaturated in its use, to a point where I left the experience feeling like a 10 out of 10? Well, the answer is three main things. The simplicity, the abject and the grotesque, and the bringing it the home. 1. Simplicity. The simplicity of the details within this movie aid in its harsh delivery of the overall message. Viewers are not given the opportunity to be distracted by anything other than the point. We know Elizabeth is famous, once well regarded enough to win an Oscar, but Elizabeth represents any woman, any person. We are not distracted by the details of her career, her family, her life, her anything. The creators know that we know and understand what type of person she represents. Elizabeth's job is simple. Her role as a fitness dancer is shown to basically highlight her need to be hot. The plot is quite simple, and although nothing could have prepared me for the final scenes, it was pretty easy to predict the consequences of the substance. Easy to predict that Sue would take over Elizabeth's life and the result would be extremely negative. I found this to be a good thing. The writer didn't fuss about trying to subvert expectations so much so that the meaning got lost in the ambiguity. We were forced to take it all in. Also, the simplicity of the sets weren't without merit too. The barrenness of Elizabeth's apartment helped us feel her emptiness. The simplicity of her workplace made us wary of her job there. The vast emptiness of her bedroom served to allow us to view the space, once meant for relaxation and restoration, as the clinical, surgical, procedural place it had become, where Elizabeth's mutilation of herself mirrors the pastes, pills, and jabs some of us inflict on ourselves every day. Even the simple packaging and explanation of the substance itself serve to remind the viewers that this isn't just one crazy potion that crazy people use. This could represent any one of the gels and mixtures people opt or are even encouraged to inject in themselves every day in an attempt to stay physically young and beautiful, especially in Hollywood. Furthermore, the lack of time wasted explaining unimportant parts and instead sticking to the relevant points of the story was very interesting to me. Although at first I wondered whether they could be deemed as plot gaps, I decided that I liked the fact that we weren't shown more of how the substance came to be, for example. I'm glad that before the powerful cooking scene, we weren't shown Elizabeth going to purchase all the ingredients that surely weren't just laying there in her house. And even though Sue building a perfectly constructed hidden room in her bathroom to store herself with no help seemed quite unlikely, I liked that there was no big explanation or attempt to make it or any of these plot points realistic. The fact is, it didn't matter. What mattered is that Sue was so disgusted with herself that she spent days hiding her body from her sight. And what mattered was that Elizabeth was so depressed and insecure that she turned to food for comfort. Explaining all of the intricacies of these details wouldn't contribute to the message of the story, and therefore they were left out, and I think it helped keep the viewers focused on the most important thing. Ultimately, the film strips back all that could be seen as distraction from the message they're trying to deliver, forcing audience to wholly absorb the meaning without any excuses. 2. The abject and grotesque. The abject is supposed to evoke feelings of repulsion specifically in relation to our own human bodies. For example, watching Elizabeth birth her younger self stirred a discomfort within me, primarily due to the abnormality of the human body functioning in that way and the imagined pain as a result. It's the same reason why Sue threw up when she saw her own body more or less dead and mutilated on the bathroom floor. It was unnatural and abject. The film did a great job maintaining that feeling of the grotesque and the abject throughout the movie. However, the part that struck out to me for a multitude of reasons was the fight scene between Sue and Elizabeth, and subsequently Sue's gruesome murder of Elizabeth. Yes, the idea of being kind to yourself has been at the forefront of all self-love campaigns for several years now, but nothing quite drums in the idea than watching somebody murder themselves simply because they think they're too ugly. The overkill displayed a sheer hatred to oneself and disgust that I'd never quite visualized before. To me, this scene was a representation of every harsh, ugly, hateful insult I'd ever thrown at myself, sometimes while looking into my own eyes in the mirror, and it just made me think, why? Why would someone do that to themselves? While watching the scene, I was literally shouting at the screen at Sue, "That is you. You are one." It really put some shit into perspective for me. What is the difference between physically beating yourself up and verbally killing your spirit? If the sight of one is gruesome and hard to watch, why do we operate as if the other is normal and okay? Seeing Sue kill Elizabeth with so much fury and violence and hate, why would you do that to yourself? And that really clicked something in me about the way we normalize such metaphorical bashing to ourselves and bodies every single day. 3. Bringing it home. At this point in the film, the message had been delivered loud and clear. The moral of the story was deciphered, and I was simply eager to see how they would wrap this thing up. Often, movies that try to deliver a deep message can make the mistake of opting for an overly cryptic and obscure ending, which granted can help continue whatever conversation outside of the screen and leave the audience wishing they could have seen some more. But the choice to not do that in this occasion really helped propel the overall purpose of the substance. In other words, the last few scenes really brought it the fuck home. The film could have ended with the death of Elizabeth and it would have made for an epic ending. The film could have finished with Sue toothlessly smiling at the producer and him being horrified, and that would have said what it needed to. The film even could have ended with Sue injecting herself with the activator fluid, becoming the last version of herself, and looking in the mirror while sticking her old face back on her head. Again, epic, because she went through all of that just to yearn for her original face back. Epic and great. But no, even though all of these endings would have maintained the message incredibly and gone down the route of a blunt, creative ending, the writer said, nah, I'm gonna bring it the home. Watching Sue and Elizabeth make the whole journey to her studio in her newest form forces the audience to absorb just how extreme the character's mutilation of herself had reached. We are saddened by the thought of how beautiful Elizabeth was and the consequences of her compulsion to change herself. We are transported to images of every Hollywood actress we've known to alter their appearance. Why did they do that to their poor selves? Why did they ruin their pretty face? We are shown just how far women will go to try and keep up with Hollywood's ever-changing standards. As an audience, we cringed as she stepped onto that stage and revealed herself in front of everyone, and we could not look away as she showered the audience with her blood and guts. The thing that Elizabeth had feared the most, being perceived and treated as ugly, was happening, and despite the pressures of the world around her, ultimately, it was all her own doing. It's like the creators held my eyelids open and said, you're gonna see this, you're gonna hear this message. And, well, I think I did. Did you?